Welcome to At Your Service, the service management podcast on the CRM Audio Network, with your hosts, Shawn Tabor and Scott LeFante. Resco is a leading provider of mobile solutions for Dynamics 365. Resco Mobile CRM is an invaluable tool for the field service engineer working in field service for Dynamics 365. Other solutions from Resco include Route Planner, which combines geographic and calendar data, even taking into account variables such as traffic and weather, to ensure that your field agents plan the optimal route possible to their work sites. Resco also offers inspections, which allows you to create, assign, complete, and evaluate field inspections with ease. Inspections enables you to shape every step of your inspection process. For more information on these solutions, or to request a demo for any of their offerings, visit www.resco.net. We thank Resco for sponsoring this episode of At Your Service. All right, welcome to another episode of At Your Service, the service management podcast on the CRM Audio Network. As always, I am your host, Shawn Tabor, and equally as always, my co-host is here, Scott LeFante. How's it going, Scott?
Good. How are you, Shawn? What's going on in your world today?
It's one of those unique episodes where we're in person, not over the interwebs, so I have to sit inordinately close to you because of the microphone, which is disconcerting. It's never good to be this close in proximity to a Yankee fan of any means, but I'm going to endure for our audience, for our people. So, what you been working on? What's going on in the wild world of service related topics for you today? Well,
lately it's been a lot of project service functionality, primarily around lovely resource utilization and project contracts and contract lines. So I'm actually preparing a updated blog post on what you need to know if you want Dynamics to calculate your resource utilization. So a lot of interesting things that even little nuances I've found out this past week that you kind of take for granted. And then you start playing around and kind of pulling the covers off, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a nice little nugget. So stay tuned for that. But that's with some exciting finds this week, I would say. Just some, like I said, little nuances here and there that wasn't quite aware of.
So when you're saying you're going to post a blog post, you're talking on the atyourservicepod.com site, the official blog of the At Your Service podcast, correct?
That is correct. That would be the only place to place it and put it. And so all of our listeners can go out and read.
Exactly. And we'll put, if Scott happens to get that blog post done before this episode publishes, which I'm going to put money on no, he won't, but it's a challenge. So if he does, we'll put that in the show notes. Otherwise, we'll get that out on the tweets and on LinkedIn as well. So I have next week when this posts, it's should be the 1st of June, I believe. A week from today, I will be at D365 Saturday. I'm very excited about that. Going to be doing a presentation on how to create a Power App in 90 minutes or less. Thanks to my friend Gus Gonzalez. We're looking forward to that. Going to have a lot of my MVP friends there, and should be a fun time. So if you have not yet registered for D365 Saturday, there's still some spots available, but space is limited. There's a link in the show notes on how to register for that as well. Last bit of news, we continue to plan for the virtual service, or the service virtual summer camp. And that's moving along quite well. Have quite a few very exciting sessions proposed by a number of folks, and I'm excited about that. And that's again going to be in August 5th through 7th, and it's going to be held through the D365 UG/CRM UG. So look forward to more information about that. All right. Well, today, what I wanted to talk about, I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on a feature within field service that is near and dear to me because we've been working with it a lot on our projects lately, and that's the incident type. We're due to do a what you need to know about field service, but until we get there, when people think field service, they really think work order, and rightfully so. It's the core. It's where all the work happens. But something that if you're not deeply involved with field service, you may not realize how much the incident type drives a lot of the capabilities and actions within field service in terms of automation and especially in the realm of preventive maintenance, preferred resources, all of that. It really ties everything together, and even interacts with the case object too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about incident types and what they are, what they do, and kind of what do you need to do to configure them, and what are the things you need to do to keep in mind when you're implementing incident types. So from your perspective, Scott, why don't we start with talking about what incident types are and how you've worked with them in the past.
So incident types are, think of them as a template for your work orders for the service that your technicians need to do while they're on site. So let's take, for example, preventative maintenance, right? So anytime look at your car, you do a preventive maintenance on your vehicle, and there's a checklist that the mechanic goes through each time he does this certain level of preventative maintenance. Well, that's what the incident type kind of is. It's a checklist. It's a template for the different activities, the service tasks, the services, if you have any, and the products you may use to complete that work order. It is obviously like with any other service that you would have, such as for your vehicle, there might be something that is found and needs to be added to that particular work order. But this is a starting point. And that's what I look at it when I'm talking to customers. I look at it as, well, if I'm out in the field as a technician, do I want to start adding in 10, 20, 30, however many tasks that I need to get done? If they're always the same ones, why not have them automatically added to the work order? So that's where I typically start the conversation with customers is, this is a template. This is a templated guide for your technicians to make their lives easier.
So taking a recent experience I had to have someone come out and do a preventive maintenance on my central heat and air. Now, if they were using Dynamics 365, when I called in to say, hey, I need a PM check, they would have got a case. They would have coded that with that incident type of case, on the case for PM check, central heat and air, right? And then when they converted that case to a work order, that would have triggered the automatic creation of all the service tasks, the products, and the services needed to complete that work order. That, I think, is a really powerful and compelling piece of capability within Dynamics 365 for field service. And I said that backwards, didn't I? It's field service for Dynamics 365, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Ben Vollmer might get mad at you.
Well, that's why I corrected myself. I don't want his largeness to reign upon me. So, anyways, this really gives you the ability as a company to, as you said, define what those standard procedures, products, and services are, so that you can really not only standardize what service you're providing, and if you need to add additional products and services or service tasks, but then it allows you to measure across all the work orders with that incident type to look at metrics, profitability, time to completion, how many times someone has called in with that particular incident type. Have we done anything different? So it opens a lot of doors. It's also part and parcel of if you have a customer that has any integration with ERP, it's something that you have to take into account, right? Because as you have customer assets, typically there are going to be standardized incident types associated to those products and or services, right? So when you're looking at an integration play, you have to consider, how does this impact incident types? What is being triggered when that message is coming over through the API? Do I need to create a new incident type? Is it being associated to an existing incident type? How is that being managed? So, and incident types are not just the products and services, but it also relates to the service tasks, the products, the services. It could also interact with resources if you have a preferred resource, priorities, etc. So there's when you set up the incident type, then you have to go into not only the scheduling of the work order, but it also could impact an agreement as well. So let's talk a little bit about how those incident types interact with agreements and potentially billing.
No. So if you think about an agreement, everyone calls agreements different things. Think of it as almost like a service contract, so to speak. And that's how sometimes I relate it to our customers. And it's really just, I think 2 months ago, I bought a service contract for my air conditioning unit. Being down in Florida, having AC running year-round is a very big deal. So you want to keep on top of that. So I signed and paid for a maintenance agreement to have the air conditioning company come out twice a year, and this is what they're going to do. This is the different package. So, it's a classification. So when you look at the agreement, the agreement has the high-level details such as, start and end dates, and you can add some additional details such as, if you have different packages that you've purchased. But the biggest thing about the agreement is adding the agreement incidents. So, and when we talk about the incidents, we're talking about the same incidents that are used on work orders. And this is just saying, what is the work that we're going to do for this particular customer, how often we're going to do it, right? And when you talk about agreements, you can also talk about invoicing. And that's important because if, depending on someone like a normal consumer, such as myself and Shawn, we may pay for our service, of course, up front. Right? If you're buying a maintenance agreement for your AC unit, you're paying it all one time. If you're a large organization and you have a company that has a $100,000 piece of equipment, they may be paying for a service contract on a monthly basis. Think about it as well as if you have a home warranty. You could pay for a home warranty all up front. You probably get a little bit of a discount, or you can pay for it monthly, and you get invoiced monthly. So that's how you have to look at it. So when you have that incident type on the agreement, it then allows you to, ahead of schedule, create those work orders with the incident and have that template come down. And that's what's really important because it saves a whole lot of time for schedulers, for dispatchers, for the technicians, because it can all be done up front.
Another thing to consider with incident types is the characteristic. You can associate with a incident type a characteristic that needs to be in place for a resource to be assigned to a work order with that incident type. So, for example, you can have an incident type for installing IoT, or you could have a standard inspection. So if you have a standard inspection, you might want to have a skill for that particular product or service, or some kind of certification. Quite often when you go to to get your car fixed at a dealership, there's certified technicians that look at certain components of the car. so that you can also translate just as well to your incident types. With the incident types, you're also going to establish the duration, what kind of default work order type, so that's going to come into play on your work order, and whether or not you're going to copy your incident items to the agreement. You can define your service tasks, you can define the products, the services, and you could also establish any notes. This is all up front. It's a lot of setup, understandably, but as you move forward, and again, like we said, when you're integrating with an outside ERP or an external system, you're going to want to make sure that you have all of this in play so that all the processes flow as smoothly as possible when creating these incident types and work orders.
Another thing to think about, and I explain this to customers a lot, that say, well, we don't really want to use it in incident types. And then I think about and I explain reporting, right? You have standard set of work that you provide to your customers. That incident type and that template allows us to quantify versus the estimated duration that it's on the incident versus what we've actually completed. So over time, we can see, did we underestimate the estimated duration of this type of event, or has our customers and our products evolved, and now we need to update our template, or do we have a resource skill issue and we need to get folks trained? So it allows you to do that analysis, whether it's in Dynamics with dashboards or Power BI, to really take a look at that data and figure out, all right, are we on track as an organization, or what do we need to adjust?
So this is a lot of good information about incident types, and this is just part of the puzzle. Clearly, if you're looking to get your certification in field service for Dynamics 365, incident types and agreements play a big role. Having taken the exam, there's a lot of great information to dig a little deeper on incident types on the docs.microsoft.com site. We'll put a link in the show notes about how to configure incident types, and also what I would recommend if you're looking to get that certification in field service, take a look at the blog post that I wrote on the atyourservicepod.com site on how to prepare for the certification exam, what steps to take, what resources are out there available to you. I think this was a great intro to some of that capability, and in the coming episodes, we're going to do a little bit more digging into different features and functionality, talking through different scenarios and processes to get a deeper understanding of how these pieces and parts work. And I think that was good. So I think what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and send it over to our friend Agnes from Resco.net. And she's going to talk a little bit about mobile synchronization. And take it away, Agnes.
Hello, and welcome to another episode with Resco. In this week's episode, when it comes to our mobile CRM app, Resco Mobile CRM, going to touch back on a bit of the synchronization processes that occur. So in last week's episode, we had discussed about full syncs, incremental syncs, and so forth. In this week's episode, I'd like to discuss more about online syncs, automation of syncs, auto background syncs, and the on-change of modes. To just introduce myself, I'm Agnes. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Resco, so I'll be able to give you a bit of a bird's eye view in terms of what our latest and greatest updates are and what we are actually capable of doing at the current period of time. And of course, in terms of product reviews or product announcements, I'll be able to keep in touch with you guys and give you a bit more information around that as well. So just as a general understanding, let's discuss about online synchronizations. You can actually synchronize records between the Resco Mobile CRM app and the CRM server anytime. When you have connection to the CRM server, of course, even in online mode, it's actually needed so that you synchronize changes made on the CRM server using the Resco Mobile CRM in online mode with the local and offline database. So information that's stored within the mobile app, of course. As well as so that when you actually lose connection to the CRM server, you can easily switch to offline mode and continue working with records that you update periodically. So all the above that I've mentioned actually gets into play when the user hits the synchronization button. Pretty standard. But by default, the synchronization is performed with the synchronization progress pop-up window. So making the user wait until the synchronization completes, and we call this the foreground sync. Okay, so just to maybe differentiate between the foreground versus the background sync, there's actually an option to set the synchronization to be performed in the Resco Mobile CRM app, its background, meaning that the Resco Mobile CRM app still needs to be running on the screen, but the synchronization does not block the user. So that means they can continue working with the Resco Mobile CRM app freely while the synchronization is running, in the background. But there is still a situation when the foreground sync is needed, and those are like when changes happen to a project, for example. The foreground sync prevents the user to make changes to the data when there is a potential change in the project structure. Okay, so like adding or removing an entity or a field from a specific project. When it comes to the automation of sync, when using the background sync, it's also possible to specify when the synchronization should be performed automatically without the user's interaction. So they need to hit, the synchronization button. This can actually happen without that individual actually having to hit the button. It's possible to start the synchronization when the Resco Mobile CRM app is booted, or when there's even a change in the records after saving a change. Okay, so pretty standard stuff. Then we have also an auto background sync. So it's also possible to set up a time interval when the Resco Mobile CRM app will try to synchronize. And when there's no connection to the CRM server, the sync will not be performed, obviously. When the connection is restored, Resco Mobile CRM will synchronize again. Pretty simple stuff. And of course, to touch base on the last point is just the on-change of modes. So when switching between online and offline mode, it is possible to specify whether the user should be informed about the need to synchronize, to have changes made also in the other mode, or even to force the synchronization automatically. So this is a bit of a light overview of how detailed and precise our offline and online mode actually works. If there's anything else you might want to know, please send us an email at communications@resco.net, and we'll be happy to help. So thanks for staying tuned to this week's episode, and look forward to catching up with you in the next 2 weeks. Take care.
On behalf of myself, Shawn Tabor, my co-host Scott LeFante, and the Dynamics 365 diva Sarah Jelinek, we thank you for listening and subscribing to the podcast. You can reach us at voice@crm.audio. On Twitter, you can follow us, CRM Hobbit for me, for Scott, at FLD Service_Guru, and of course, at Dyne365 Diva for Sarah. For more information and content about what we spoke about on this episode and others, visit our blog at atyourservicepod.com. This has been At Your Service on the CRM Audio Network, a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.